So, as I said at the top of the service, welcome to the month of December. Can you believe it? We're here. As we finish out the year, the organization that we're a part of kind of gives us a theme every month. And our theme for December is Journey of Becoming. And I think that's what studying spirituality is all about, is learning how to become. Become what? Become the highest version of ourselves. You know, we turn to spirituality in places like this to learn how to understand ourselves better as a spiritual being. You know, the whole time we're trying to understand ourselves as a human being, and from what I can tell, it's probably going to take several lifetimes to figure out how to merge the two of those aspects of ourselves into one. And hopefully we'll get a new lifetime to master it, right? But our monthly theme about Journey of Becoming is important because it is what we are doing. But my lesson today sounds counterintuitive, but it's not. My message today is about relaxing on the journey. And I actually thought it might be a timely message here in the month of December to tell you all to relax. Um, and since I doubt some of you even know what it means, I'm going to give you the definition. The definition of relax is to make or become less tense or anxious. And I think all of us need this reminder to relax right now, to make ourselves less tense and less anxious. What would our holiday season be like if we were less tense and less anxious? What would our lives be like, right, if we were less tense or anxious? So let's see if we can find some spiritual truth to help us on this journey of becoming relaxed. So since tonight is the final night of Hanukkah, I thought I would light a menorah this morning, and I want to look to that Hebrew story for some wisdom today. And I've taught the lesson of Hanukkah before. If you weren't here for that, someday I might repeat it, but I just want to do a brief overview of it today. So as you probably know, Hanukkah is the 8-day wintertime festival of lights that the Jewish people celebrate with the nightly lighting of the menorah. And the word Hanukkah actually means dedication. And the holiday is named Hanukkah because it celebrates the rededication of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem that happened more than 2,000 years ago. It had to be rededicated because all those years ago in ancient history, the Jewish lands were invaded by a war. The Syrian Greeks took over their land, and during this war, that Jewish holy temple in Jerusalem was kind of taken by the soldiers, and the temple was confiscated for one purpose, and that was to worship their god, Zeus. And the Greeks defiled that holy temple by performing the sacrifice of pigs, actually, which are completely unclean under Jewish law. So as you can imagine, this greatly upset the Jewish people. But they were actually too terrified to fight back against the mighty Greek army. And things got worse because the Greek emperor made the observation of Judaism illegal, and it was punishable by death. So he basically ordered all the Jewish people to worship Zeus, and he sent, Greek soldiers into the Jewish villages and forcibly made them bow down to Zeus and to eat pork, right? Or die. That was the bottom line. And because these practices are deeply forbidden by Torah law, to worship another idol and then to eat unclean food, they were just horrified, actually. And a Greek officer ordered Mattathias, who was a rabbi, a holy man, to follow these demands. And Mattathias stood up and said, "No, I'm not doing it." And a war began, because when Mattathias stood up and said no, a whole bunch of Jewish, kind of a ragtag army of Jewish people started fighting them. They insurrected and they drove the Syrian Greeks from the Holy Land. And it was an unlikely victory, actually, but it allowed the Jewish army to go back into the city of Jerusalem, and they invited the rabbis to come back into the temple and return the city to a level of holiness, including the temple. And the Jewish people were so determined to reconsecrate their own religious customs and the temple immediately. And so they knew if they could light the lamp in the temple, that would start everything. But as I said, everything in the temple had kind of been defiled by the Greeks. And so the rabbis knew that they could purify it if they could just light their lamp with the ritual oil. So they searched high and low for the oil. And they found in the chaos only one small jar of pure olive oil that had escaped contamination by the warring factor. And so in their joy of finding the oil, they immediately just lit the lamp. They used the oil to rekindle the lamp. And miraculously, the oil, which was just a tiny amount, should have only lasted for 1 day, burned for 8 days. The exact amount of time it took them to go find more oil, rededicate it, consecrate it, and get ready for having the light lit for eternity, basically. But because of this 8-day miracle, the people then instituted the Festival of Hanukkah, and they declare basically that lights be lit in every Jewish home to commemorate this miracle, publicly claiming God's providence for the Jewish people and triumph of light over darkness. So that is why the menorah is lit today. But what can we learn? What can we learn from that tale, that story? And there are actually lots of little pieces of wisdom that you can dig into in that story. But the piece I want to draw out from my lesson this morning is the moment they found the oil and lit the lamp in the temple. They knew when they lit it, they were going to need some more oil. They knew it. But they didn't hesitate. They lit it anyway. They didn't worry about the oil running out. They didn't try to ration the oil in any way. They just lit the lamp to purify the temple. They did their part, and they relinquished control. And then what happened? Spirit took over, and a miracle unfolded. So I need that lesson this morning, right? Do my part and relinquish control. Do my best and then relax. Do you know what another word for relax is? Surrender. Do my best and surrender the rest. Surrender is an active verb. It requires us to make a conscious choice to move from controlling a thing to relaxing into the order of the divine. I've done what I can do, and I trust that order is always unfolding. That, my friends, is living spiritually. Do your part and let go and trust. You know, so most of us have plans for the rest of the year. You know, those plans, what do they include? Family gatherings and special foods and work functions and travel and extra days off from work and all kinds of traditions. And I said most of us because I know there are probably people in the room that don't change their routine very much in the month of December, but most of us do, right? You know, Randy's going to share several announcements about things we have going on here in the community for the rest of the year. You know, special services and rituals and stuff that we do at this time of year. All the things you kind of come to enjoy, you know? And with all those special activities, usually what accompanies special activities? Expectations, right? We like things to go the way we like things to go. And when our levels of expectation are very high, some of us can become quite controlling. Personally, I like for things around here to go a certain way, and I too have to watch myself about control, you know? So what typically happens is our human selves take over to start managing everything to our preferences. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But what would happen? What would happen if we did as the Jewish people did and simply light the lamp and let Spirit do its part? What if we let go of our fear that things won't be perfect and we just surrendered? What I know is that when we surrender to the presence and power of the divine love within us, without any hesitation, in any situation or circumstances, Anything is possible. And actually, when we surrender to the presence of the divine love within us, not only is anything possible, but the best outcome is possible. Sometimes Spirit has way bigger ideas than we do. We just have to get our human hands off of the control panel and let God do its thing. Light the lamp and relax. Most of the time, we're trying to control the things we love, the people we love, the traditions we love, whatever. There's a Christian author named Paul Miller, and he said this: releasing control of something I loved opened the door to communion with God. The invitation is to open the door and let God in more deeply to everything we have going on, everything we love. Because in our effort to control, what do? We often edge God out. I think it was Wayne Dyer that said, edge God out, E-G-O, ego, right? So when we get our human egos wrapped around a situation, we often leave God or Spirit completely out of the equation. But how could we do it differently? I invite you to remember an old childhood teaching. This will stick with you, I promise. An old teaching for when you were on fire, literally, right? Remember when you were taught stop, drop, and roll? Okay, right? Not just me, okay. So now might be a good time to pull that lesson out and take a look at it. Stop, drop, and roll. Because this time of year, some of us have our hair literally on fire. We do. You know, if we stop obsessing and controlling, drop into our inner connection and roll with what unfolds, or relax. Stop, drop, and roll. No matter what is on your calendar, no matter what you're planning to do, let God into it. I want to break that down. For me, it would sound something like this. Let's say I have a holiday event I have to attend, right? And I'm going to interact with some folks that I haven't seen in a while. And quite frankly, that kind of thing would make me a bit nervous. That tense and anxious part, yeah. So I might obsess about what I was going to wear. I might obsess about what I have to bring. I might obsess about who's going to be there and what am I going to say to them, right? All these little details. Please tell me y'all can relate, okay, right? Okay. So I could completely edge God out of all of it, completely, if I'm not careful. So first I have to stop. If I can get mindful that I'm getting controlling, if I can get there in my mind that I'm feeling the tension rise, I can stop. I can stop obsessing, stop fretting, stop planning, stop holding my breath, literally stop moving. My elementary school teacher would be proud. Stop, right? And when I stop myself, I drop into the quiet. I drop within and contemplate, what do I intend for this event that I got to go to, right? I set an intention like, when I go to this event, I intend to feel excitement to see my old friends, or I intend to feel connected and fully present, or I intend to feel in harmony with everything happening that night. And once I have an intention, I can just drop further into that inner space with the divine and listen. And when I listen, when I get quiet, sometimes I'll get clear on exactly what I want to wear. Sometimes I get clear on, or I have a memory, and I'm like, oh, I want to talk to her about this. I haven't seen her in a while. You know, or I'll have an awareness of something that would add to the event that I'm going to. And sometimes I can just feel an inner peace and just relax into what's happening, knowing that all will be well and I don't have to control it all. So by stopping and dropping like that, I've lit my lamp, so to speak, right? And I can truly surrender. I can relax and I can roll with whatever unfolds. I can roll with faith, knowing that by spiritual law, my intention is heard and things will unfold for my greatest good. And again, Spirit might have a much bigger idea for that event for me than I do for myself. So as we continue on our journey of becoming more connected to that inner spirit within, I invite you to let go of your need to control it. Trust the divine order of life. Stop, drop, and roll. And I give you permission to tell each other that, right? If you see someone's hair on fire about something, say stop, drop, and roll, right? So I want to share a personal example, a recent actually personal example with trusting that all is unfolding. perfectly. So as many of you know, some of you do, I decided last fall to join a singing group, a choral group. My intention was to add this like joyful level to my life, right? This new thing. I intended to meet new people, right? I intended to have fun. So I dropped into prayer that Spirit would kind of guide me each step of the way, and that I would be met in this new group with love and acceptance. And then I rolled. I just relaxed and I just dove right in. And here's what Spirit had to delight me about. So, to my delight, it turns out that the director of the chorus, some of you know this, happens to be Derek, one of Derek's best friends. He's the guy who sang with Derek at the party. And it also turns out that there are two other musicians in the group that used to come here more. They sing a part of that group too. So once I got my ego and fear out of the way, like, oh no, I'm doing something new, then I let it all unfold beautifully. I just had to do my part and light the lamp. My intention had to be clear. So I give you that real example in my life, not because it's special, but because I know that my fears are universal. You know, we all like to control things instead of trusting that all will be okay. Hollywood screenwriter and director Tom Shadyac shared his wisdom in this writing. He said, "Fear represents our need to hang on to the riverbank, to control outcomes, results, our lives. It swims upstream. Truth is about releasing that hold, letting go of results, and trusting the direction of life's current." Is our desire to control everything fear, like he writes? I think so. I think we're afraid to trust that we are enough in every situation that we're in. I think we're afraid to deeply know that we belong wherever we are. We're fearful that the outcome won't be what we expected or desired. And we resist relaxing because, quite frankly, we aren't 100% certain that God's got this. And these fears are present all year long, not just in December, but we're in December, so I'm talking about it today. We've got to remember that we're connected to the source of all. And there's nothing you can do to separate yourself from that truth. We can trust that we are being led to the right experiences and situations at all times. We can relax and know that divine order is always unfolding. So back in August, about the time I actually started singing with that choral group, I came across this poet named John Rodell. And if you're on Facebook, you might see him from time to time because he's spreading like wildfire. And I just love him. And when I was preparing for my talk today, I remembered this poem he wrote about the topic of control, and I want to share it with you this morning. In some of his poetry, he writes beautiful dialogue between himself and the God of his understanding. And so I'm going to read this kind of in first person, and this is how it goes. It says, "Hey, God," and God says, "Hello, my love." And I say, "The world is completely out of control." And God goes, "I know, it's such an adventure, right?" I mean, and I say, "No, it's like being on a runaway train. I need to feel like I'm in control of my life." And God says, "You want to be in control?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And God says, "You are living on a spinning wet rock of a planet that resides next to a constantly exploding fireball in the middle of an ever-expanding universe that is filled with mysteries beyond your wildest imagination." And I'm like, "Okay." And God says, "And on this planet that you are hurtling through the great expanse in, you are cohabitating with billions of other people who have free will and their own experiences that shape their perspectives and beliefs." And I'm like, "Yeah." And God says, "And while all of this is going on, your soul is residing in a physical body that is such a miracle of delicate engineering that at any given moment it could produce its last heartbeat." And I'm like, "Right?" And God says, "What is it about your existence that you think you have any control of?" And I'm like, he goes, come on, you know the answer to this. What can you control?" And I'm like, "How kind I am to people." And God's like, "Yep, and one other thing." What other thing? And God says, "How kind you are to yourself. Aside from that, most of everything is a bit outside of your design." And I'm like, "Well, that's a bit terrifying." And God says, "All great adventures are." That's John Rodell. And I needed that reminder in August, and I need it this morning too, right here in December. Maybe you did too, you know? We want so badly to control everything so we can feel less vulnerable. But we have no other choice but to relax and let the order of the design unfold before us and enjoy this terrifying but great adventure called life. You know, we have to light our lamp and let Spirit do the rest. So when you feel a bit overwhelmed, just don't forget, stop, drop, and roll. So there's a one-sentence affirmation. Let's affirm this together. Today, I choose to remember that divine order is always unfolding in my life